how does it feel like to have a really cool job, to be dealing with one Web3, like cutting edge finance, best hackers in the world, working with GM
Right.
Hacker, being like building like a really strong team. I know you guys have a lot of things to look, but it's also really nice and really new, right?
Frankly, yeah, working with GM Hacker, super cool. I'm flattered that I got to know him before we were working together. We were both, friends with the Immunefi circle before, and he actually ended up working there before me. And even though I knew the guys before him, and it was just so cool. It's just so nice when you get to work with friends. I have some friends who work in government, and they're always like, "Oh, it's always cutthroat. You can't really put your heart on your sleeve." But at Immunify, it's a total opposite. Where I've just hung out with so many of the people there. I wish they all lived nearby. Uh, the relationships are pretty close, and I mean, at the end of the day, that's necessary though, because in the government, if someone had some really top secret information, they're like, "Oh, by the way, if you spill this information and lead to us getting hacked, we'll just kill you." Immunify does not have this option, and so we pretty much try and hire friends as the best proxy for trustworthy people as far as possible, and it's very lucky to be in this area. And then there's the hacker side, which is crazy because when I know a lot of people think that everyone wants to be very anonymous. Everyone wants to be like secret, hacker wearing a hoodie in a basement all the time. But in my experience, that is like opposite of the truth. And even the guys who do want to be fairly anonymous, they're like very friendly to chat and share information. You tell them like, I won't dox you. I'll try not to ask questions that accidentally tell me about too much about who you are. But they still, these guys who've made, a million or plus are super happy to chat and flattered, when someone from Immunify is reaching out to them. And for me, it's like the total opposite. Like I'll talk to some university student who's made like 60K just doing like weekends and events with his friends where they would like hack on Immunify or other projects. And I'm like, wait, you're flattered to talk to me? I'm flattered to talk to you. So cool, man. This is the team you put together, the fun you're
Nice.
having. It's just a delight. We got one new white hat success story coming out on this topic actually, and it's just this duo of friends, and they were friends since they were like 13 or 14. And they got all these stories of doing like pranks together in high school. And then one of them got into Web3 and he got into hacking, and the other did like I think some front end programming, but he just pulled him into it as well. He's like, "This is so much fun. I want to be doing this with my friends." And they would just go on like trips together traveling, and when they're on the train or on a plane they'd be like, "All right, let's awkwardly sit with our laptops in this tiny little space and just like have fun and hack on some project and chat."
Wow,
And
bro.
they've made good money. Like they're a success story, and these guys are like
16
young
or
20s.
something?
Well, now they're like young 20s. They've just known each other for a long time. And Yeah, no, it's an awesome story, especially because one of them, was there ahead of the other, and Web3 salaries and payouts are just higher. But he's like, yeah, I'm totally happy to bring in my smart friend, and from an ROI perspective, maybe I'm making less money for like 6 months until he catches up to me in skill. But I'm having more fun. And in the long term, even on like a 2 year time horizon, we're going to be able to do such cool projects together. I'm going to learn so much faster with my friend here. I'm way more likely to get a big payout because I'm having fun. I'm learning. I don't have to worry about not having anyone to talk to. This is a big problem. Like if you ever, I'm sure at least some of you have submitted a bug report where you're like, I expect to get, or I hope to get 100K or more. And that's pretty stressful, even if you're really confident, even if like no conflict with the project, no mediation, you are on edge because this is a big deal. And if you have someone you can trust and talk to, it makes such a big difference. Someone who actually knows what the experience is like makes such a big difference. And this is why I like OpenSense. It's like a general open community for all of this.
Thank you so
Um,
much. Um,
yeah, no, it's so yes, I do feel very appreciative to get this cool job where my job is to talk to cool people. generally people who are not appreciated for like their actual skill and value they provide yet, which makes it easier for me. Because you go to someone who's, you know, like a Leonardo da Vinci when he's still 14 or 16 years old, and he's like, oh my goodness, Immunefi's talking to me. And I'm like, no. You are, I talk to these guys and I'm like, you are way smarter than me. I can just tell from like the process of your thinking or your writing. I'm flattered to be talking to you here.
That's amazing, bro. And can I ask you something about this? So usually when talking with these people, because what we have on Twitter is really smart people pretending that they are dumb, so they have these shit posts and everything. And how does it feel? You know, what is the usual communication style? Do you send a DM, or usually that starts on Immunify when you need to solve some problem?
Oh man, there's a lot of angles to this question. The casual one, which I think is like first everyone would benefit from hearing, is you can just like DM people on Twitter when you have nothing to say and just be like, man, this tweet of yours was great. And then if you have something to say, awesome. If you don't, people just love hearing that. I remember I did a tweet that was pretty popular, and it was just like, oh, reminder, you can just DM people and say like, hey, I like your tweets. Thank you, you know, just for sharing. And then I got like 3 or 4 people who sent me like the quote, literally the same joke, being like, hey, I like your tweet. Thanks for just sharing. And they'd all quote it. But it was charming. You know, I enjoyed it. And it's just a great, you know, some of these guys I end up talking to more when they have bug report issues or questions or whatever. And, you know, it's just we've built up some rapport, which I I think is important. You got to really be taking those little steps, because it's not like school or university where you pass each other on the campus each day and you kind of get familiar. Here, you actually got to like make a little more of an effort each time. And
go on.
Yeah, and so like a ton of what I do is just like setting up the relationships. Because if you have a problem in your bug report, it could just be a question. It's like, what's a common question? So sometimes it happens a project changes their bug bounty terms after you've submitted your report. And you're like, oh no, this is going to lower my payout, or this is going to make it, you know, out of scope entirely. And they don't know that, like, no, once your bug report is submitted, it doesn't matter what they change the rules. The old rules are the ones that apply. But if you don't know that, it's very stressful. And if you don't know who to ask, it's even more stressful. But if we've already got the, you know, DM set up, it's just like a casual message. And then I can just give you like a casual response, and all of that is solved.
Really cool, bro.
So and you know, this is for the Immunefi side, but this is for like anything else. I did like a carpentry apprenticeship with just like some friends in Quebec one time, because I was really into education and studying education and history of education. And I like wrote an article on it. And this young lady sent me a message like, this is great. I want to help you do more of this. Do you want like help editing? Do you want like someone to chat with about your idea? She was just super friendly. Ended up becoming a great friend. Introduced me to many other people who've become great friends. And I went to Quebec and did an apprenticeship with her husband, who's a professional carpenter. And it was all because she just like sent one friendly message being like, I like this thing you wrote. I'm not a good writer. I'm a bad writer. But it was very motivating, very encouraging. And she's kind of got a magical gift for that. But I always try and like channel my inner socialite. I just pretend I'm her and be like, how would I support someone? Or just like say, this was good, you know? This was good. I think we could all use a pat on the back a little more than we get. And this naturally will flow into technical work and partners and everything else. Like I mentioned, the hacking duo, these are just friends. Ideally, you're going to be friends first and like business partners or coworkers second. Much more sustainable way. And for like our ecosystem, which is very weird and very online, very necessary. Not everyone's going to be good at Twitter and get like 1,000, 10,000 followers. And so generally, actually, I try and say, like, don't message people with a ton of followers until you're comfortable with it. Talk to, just, you know, ton of super cool people have like 100 followers on Twitter, and they've made like $300,000 on Immunefi, and that's normal.
It's very true.
Yeah.
And bro, can we know a little bit about your Web3 story? Because to work on Unify, to be amongst these hackers, you need to know how to communicate. Like I'm here for 3 years, but I'm technical, and I don't know how technical you are. So can we know a little bit about your background and how you got into Web3? I know that Unify is a friendly and a group of friends, but how did it all came together?
Right. Yeah. So what's it? When did I get involved? Crypto. Late 2016, early 2017, that big bull market there, ICO boom was when I first started working in crypto. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was in my young 20s at the time and was just flailing about, having fun. Was doing marketing just as that was like the entry level work that was needed. There was a lot of shady ways people were raising money from a legal perspective, if not from a business perspective. It was legit. It was just like no one knew how KYC worked in 2017 for an ICO, especially with weird American rules. And then, you go through the pains of startups where a lot of people are just like, I don't know, 20% of the people are doing 99% of the work. And you quickly learn who those 20% of the people are, either by they're really hardworking, or they're really sincere, or they're just really, really talented or experienced. And those people gravitate to each other and really try and get away from the rest. And then the next project you do, you try and pull those people with you, and you do the same thing again. And the next project, you do the same thing again. And that was just how I got to know these guys. But I was always doing like marketing, and then I did some product. Started to do a startup of our own, which was actually a developer education tool, which, spoiler alert, it didn't work out, that startup, but it was pretty much worked on it for 6 months with some guys who now work at Immunefi, and we all learned a ton. And the general idea at the end of it was every project needs to educate people on how to use their technology. Same thing security has here. And there is no like easy way you can plug in a tutorial to your website. It's all like custom built tools, or you're hacking together some other developer education tools. And developer education is like the big hard thing. Same for security, of course. And we were like, okay, how can we make this easier so that you can just like put a sandbox right on the front page of your website? Developers are the most valuable users, and immediately start like showing them the cool things you can do with your technology, or how it works. And, this would be just as great for like, Foundry or Hard Hat, as tutorials are always in demand. And we got to the point where we realized this could be a great business. And we'd like, once again, just met a ton of cool people, because I'd be like, hey, who has this problem? Who's trying to solve this problem? Talk to a cajillion marketing guys and community managers and CTOs, because this was a very cross-domain problem of training developers. And then we realized, like, okay, we figured it out, but none of us wanted to work on this project anymore. And my dark secret is I am not actually a developer. I generally don't bring that up, as it's a pretty like low status signal. People are like, ooh, not a developer. Engineers are where it's at, man. And this is true, especially in crypto. But you learn the language, you learn the developer way of thinking, and I just personally wasn't interested in like spending, because if I succeed, I'm spending the next 10 years on this startup. If I fail, I'm spending the next 3 years on it. So you really want it to be a project that you care about, something you enjoy doing too. And then COVID happened. And I took a mini vacation for like a year and a half, doing the carpentry and traveling around and building saunas and making wine and raising chickens. I like the farmer country lifestyle very much. I actually got a sauna I'm building in my backyard right now. And then it was time to attend to some family responsibilities. And I'm like, well, time to be stable again and have a stable job. So I reached out to some friends. I'm like, okay, who has a place for my skill set? And Immunefi was willing to take me in very graciously. And so this is where I ended up here.
I just want to add something in there. I think you're not being a developer is even better for your position, because being a developer at what you're doing could lead you to some, being influenced by something, and maybe having to look in the code. I mean, I think not being a developer makes you able to make faster decisions and find the developers you need, you know?
Sure. It yeah, it definitely does stop me from, for example, being a bug hunter myself. When I start to see what's really making people succeed, what separates, that top 10% of bug hunters from everybody else. I'm like, oh man, I've got some of these secrets, some of them that are easy to put into words, and some of them that are kind of like black magic, forbidden from being captured. The Tao cannot be spoken or taught, and the Tao that is taught is not the Tao, sort of thing. And I don't have that option. I'm like, what am I going to do? Learn Solidity from scratch, which of course is what Zach O'Brant did. So maybe I shouldn't say that. He's got a really interesting story of shifting from indie book publishing, a company he created, to like machine learning over a year, to Web3, and now he's like this super pro hacker. I think like his journey is like a year and a half. It's crazy how fast you can grow when you really just dive into it and focus and have an interest. But yeah.
Crypto Twitter is so unfair, because we get to exchange ideas with pretty much the best in the world, the best developers, and now we are comparing ourselves, so maybe we could do it too, but it's so unfair.
This is true. This is true. Twitter is a dangerous thing. Twitter is a dangerous thing.
I have one question for you regarding a tweet that you made some time ago, stating the difference between auditing firms, contest auditors, and bug bounty hunters. Can you talk a little bit to us the difference on that?
Yeah. And I think this is an important thing if you want to succeed in like Web3 security, you need to know like where you're trying to succeed, because it's a very broad and distinct field. And like, a lot of young guys are, mostly young guys or just general optimists are looking at it and they're like, there's so much opportunity, so much to do. But it's the problem of someone who looks at programming in general and their parents tell them, oh, you should be a programmer. That's where it's at. What are you going to do? Back end? Are you going to do front end? Are you going to do DevOps? Are you going to do Web3, Web2, whatever? You really need to actually narrow in and figure out what you're suited to doing. And for audits, for like auditing firms, that's a very different relationship to the code than for contest audits, and then for bug counters as well. And the easy way of putting it is that if you're an auditing firm, generally you're looking at auditing the whole project over like 6 weeks. They're expecting you to check for every type of attack vector, every type of bug, and they really want you to understand it from top to bottom and give your seal of approval. And you get to take your time, and you have a team, and you go out and do it. The limitations for that, though, is unless you're like a really intelligent auditing firm, you're going to have your skill sets where you're specialized in and where you're not specialized in. And you don't have the opportunity of, like, I often think of like 100 Proof's recent bug where he got paid $1 million and a bit by Kyber Network, where the way he got paid that $1 million would not have worked if he was at an auditing firm, because he spent, like 3 weeks essentially on one bug, looking at the code, having a feeling there's something there, needing to research what actually this is, because he didn't understand the fine points of the technology, though he knew he could. And then there's actually understanding the bug specifically and just how impactful it is. And for an auditing firm, if you're doing like a 6-week audit and you're sending like 3 or 4 people on it, you can't have just one person looking at one tiny niche of the code for 3. I mean, you do, and you do want to, but the business incentives make it difficult, to say the least. So only the best auditing firms can manage that challenge. While you go to contest audits, and it's like, all right, here's 1 week, find everything you can. 1 week is not nearly enough time to find like the type of bug that 100 Proof found. Unless you already had that incredibly specialized knowledge, you're not going to go in and just pick it out. On the other hand, you get to look at the whole code, or you get to specialize on one part of the code. You get a ton of eyes, a ton of different expertise. And if you know what you're good at, either whether that's like picking out a specific type of bug, then you can just look for projects that have that. Once again, everyone knows that on like contest audits, the unique findings the highs especially get all the payout. It doesn't matter how many lows you found. It doesn't matter if you found the high that 30 other people found. You're not making money from that. It's about the unique findings, and then you'll have this deadline. So you go in, you have your fun sense of community, your sprint. You learn from it and from each other, and then you go on to the next one. But what's really going to make you succeed there is more specialization compared to like an audit firm, which has to do a broad overview. And then it gets to Immunefi, where it's like contest audits taken to the extreme, where it's like only unique highs matter, except if you find like a unique high or unique critical, then you're going to get paid like $1 million or $100,000 or something like that. But only one of you is going to get paid. And I've seen a ton of bugs where a new code comes out, people look into it, and like 3 people report the same bug within like the first day, but only the first guy gets paid for it. And so like that specialized skill set becomes more and more important. There are, like, for example, I know there's some web bug hunters that do really well on Immunefi because they just know how to find some web bugs that affect crypto projects. And they're just delivering the same bug over and over and over again for, tens of thousands of dollars on Immunefi to different projects. And they just, they all got the same bug.
This is amazing.
And so like my general thought there, actually, Mitchell, the CEO, founder, put it well, where he said it is harder to find bugs in Web3 and like crypto projects than it was before. But there are bugs to find. It's not like there are no bugs. It's just like they're 100-proof tier bugs. They're these niche scale bugs where you really need to know what you're talking about. You probably need to talk to someone else who also knows, just because like this research it's not easily found out there. And if it was easily found out there, then all like the bug hunting bots or every newbie would have read about this attack type, and then they find it in the contest audits. So you are always looking for the more specialized or more complex things.
Bro, just touching on what you just said, I was looking at this research regarding strategies to, make more money while bug bounting. And they were talking exactly about this, like this. They took the vectors they usually pay more, so they have a list of 5 vectors, and they just went for those vectors. They don't went for projects, So this is really interesting. I guess strategy is really important. And talking about that, what are the traits of the pros? What they do that people are not doing that they could improve their process.
Yeah. So the first thing that kind of goes to this, and this kind of answers Pangolin, your question in the comments there I saw about is it the same people finding bugs regularly, or is it more of a unique bug finders coming in and coming out? And as much as there is a process, it needs to mesh with your personality. So some people are totally happy to find like the type of bug that they know how to find, look through a project, see if they get it, and then go on to the next one. And they're like, I didn't find the bug that I'm really good at finding. I'm going to move on. I don't really care too much about deeply understanding the protocol or deeply learning about some niche part of the code. And some guys succeed like that. The more common success I see is people who are willing to, and when I say success, I mean like you're making like 100,000 or more. Whether that's off one bug or off a couple bugs in a couple weeks, you're regularly finding things. And I think like one of our top white hats, Ken Kodu, has like every single month for like the last 6+ months, he's found a critical. Some of them are only paid, on like they're really tiny projects, and he only gets paid like 10K or something, up to way higher amounts. And like I said, the fundamental part is niche understanding. So as far as you're going into the code and you're learning it, you want to know like what you don't care about, what parts of the code you don't care about, what types of projects you don't care about. And then simultaneously, the other side of the coin is what you do care about and you do want to learn about. And if you want to deep dive into math on a project, pick mathy projects and deep dive into them. And this is not going to work in contest audit fashion where you go through it in a week. Like, no, you study it. You have a hunch that there's a code bug somewhere that could be big. you need to spend a few days researching some sort of math or some sort of a niche part of this code, and then you return to it and you try and find it again. And then, maybe you do, but even if you don't, you have like some really valuable knowledge you can carry on to your next hunt. And that applies for math bugs, but if you're doing like some, logic errors, some people are great at that. Some people are really into economics. And so looking at like how slippage can be exploited, or how, delay in the product's price updating compared to, whatever Oracle feeds are used or something like that, or arbitraging between exchanges. There's all these really niche, complicated bugs, which are frankly beyond my understanding. And it needs to be that way. If I could easily explain the bug, then, it wouldn't be paid like $100K because other people would be finding it, or it wouldn't be made in the first place. So for bug hunting technique, like my attitude is like, it's almost common sense. It's like, follow your interest, go deep. Generally for bug hunting, I say like, if you got 3 days to spend on it, you should probably go do like a contest audit instead. You want to be able to follow your interest, and there's a certain amount of pain that goes in with that, where you're just not getting rewarded, and you need to be okay with that. Where for like 100 proof, like there's some private stories I helped him out with where like he almost nailed some really big bugs, and it just didn't work out, and it is incredibly demoralizing. You spend a month to get 100K or bigger bug. You put a lot of work into it, a lot of thought. It is legit, and then maybe for some good reason or some silly technicality, you don't get paid for it. And how do you just not quit on the spot there? Talking about like burnout or manage life balance, this is where you can really get wrapped up and sucked into your work in a bad way. And if you're always on, always thinking about it, I don't think that's a very good, I just know that's not a good way of thinking about it. You need to be able to go on a walk or go on a hike for an hour or more and do other stuff, and then return with a fresh mind and have let your subconscious process some of the information you've already digested to understand something new. And that's where the bugs are going to come from. Like, this is not going to be, so I like checklists from a matter of helping you focus. Checklists will not help you find bugs on live projects for the most case. It's going to be, they'll get you started, but then you got to follow your interest. But there's a cajillion questions, and I don't want to ramble on things people aren't interested about. So why don't you refocus me?
Yeah, let's go to the questions. I'm gonna go for the first one from GM Hacker. You have any suggestions on how to get started on bug hunting on Immunefi?
Right. So first, have technical skill. Like, there's some prerequisites. People often are like, what resources should I learn to get started? And, there's a ton of good beginner resources out there. Web3 Security DAO, OpenSense here, Capture the Flags. You just need to be comfortable looking in the code. And I guess comfort is kind of just as important as the technical skill. Because if you don't believe you can find a bug, then you're going to have a hunch, and your hunch will be right, but you won't have confidence in yourself, and you won't spend a week or two deep diving into your hunch, and so you'll miss it out. I'm sure that happens all the time. So basics, enough to be confident in your skills. I do actually like, practicing on contest audits as a means to build that confidence, kind of test your understanding. And beyond that, though, it's, pick a project that's interesting to you and try and understand it. If it's a smaller one, that's usually ideal. You don't want to understand some behemoth of a project as your first one, but just like go in there, trying to find some bugs, trying to understand it. Talk to other people involved in the project, developers on top or in the project, as you're just trying to really understand the code. And I think there was one of our skilled white hats from got some big bugs in 2021. He had a point where his method was to understand a protocol so that if he needed to write the code from memory, he could do it. It wouldn't be perfect. It wouldn't be exactly the same. He's not memorizing it, but he knows the format of how it works and how things connect to each other. And then he could go with the attitude of, okay, how do I break it now? And even if you don't find a bug doing that, you are going to learn a lot and really fast. And that knowledge will transfer to other projects. And quickly you'll find out you're interested in some types of projects or some type of bugs more than others, and just, gravitate towards them. Don't fight that force and try and be the master of everything.
Amazing,
Other than
bro.
that, it's just like, make friends, send some cold DMs. Someone was pointing out that I was talking about cold DMing, and I'm like, yeah, no, for sure. If you want to jump on a call, be comfortable jumping on a call with someone, being like, hey, I was looking at this project. I need someone to just explain it to and poke holes in my reasoning. Do I misunderstand it? Does this not make sense? Is this not clear? And I can't do that alone. Very few people are like, the Newton who goes into the countryside and discovers calculus on his own. Most of us are going to need someone to bounce ideas back and have conversations.
Very true. So we have another question here, which is sometimes you're bug hunting for weeks and you don't find a problem, you start having the imposter syndrome, and how do you handle burnouts? How do you keep on?
Right. Yeah. I suffer with frustration myself. I get really involved in a task or a thought or a problem. And then I get really frustrated when I can't solve it. And I want to keep banging my head against it instead of just being like, I need to go to bed for the night and let this be. And, fundamentally, that's just you having wrong expectations about how hard something is in reality and not adapting your expectations to what you've learned. Like, you realize something's harder than you thought it was. Can't find the bug in the project, not even one, and you thought you would be able to. To be able to just take a step back, and this is true for any skill, is very, very important. And for bug hunting, this is why I generally say you need at least a month to commit to it without needing a reward, because the rewards can be really delayed. And like I said, with the 100 proof example, that guy finds tons of great bugs, and for some reason or other, they don't always pay out. And he's got a very impressive, sustained motivation and focus to keep on doing it, even when you get demoralized. And so, for burnout, once again, have someone you can talk to. It's all common sense stuff. Be able to take a break. You don't want to be bug hunting as though your life depended on it. That does work for some people. I don't recommend it. Not a sustainable method. Yeah, burnout. I can't say anything more than the common sense.
Awesome. Next question is, should someone first reach a certain skill level before start with bug hunting, or should one just jump in right away?
So this is going to depend on your context. Frankly, pretty much everyone who got involved in crypto, let's say 5 years ago, when education was really bad, they just looked at projects. They just hung out in communities. They just were interested in the work, and they learned that way. And if that's your situation, great. Not everyone thrives in such uncertain type of context, and they depend more on a curriculum or a course or a checklist to go through. And for bug hunting, it's really going to depend on your personality there. If you don't have much confidence, and most people who are unconfident know that about themselves, it's yeah, okay, go do a bunch of capture the flags, go do some group audits with OpenSense, just hang out with people, do contest audits, study the results after. And when you realize you're finding some bugs, sweet. Now look at Immunefi and start with some easier projects, some things that you feel are easy, and say okay, I'm just gonna do this for 2 weeks. I'm gonna try and understand the project and go for bugs. But for other people, they're comfortable just diving into the craziness. And I forget who this was, but one of these guys, really impressive, web security researcher and Web3. And he was yeah, I knew nothing about it. I wanted to figure out how to do auditing, bug hunting, and all the security researcher work. And so I opened up a project and I just tossed it into, I don't know, I think tossed some code into Foundry and started doing a tutorial and just clicking around and just trying to figure out how to break it, figure out how it actually works. And this was like true, noble amateur who's just throwing pieces together, trying to figure out how things work. And he was really uncomfortable in the uncertainty and lack of guidance, and was comfortable reaching out to people, being like, I have no idea what's going on or why this isn't working. And, within like a year, I forget, I wish I remembered who name this was, someone active on Twitter. But within like a year, he was like known as like one of the top Web3 security researchers.
Sorry, not sorry.
Pardon?
Sorry, not sorry.
Maybe. So many of the Twitter, stories blend together over time.
Amazing, bro.
I've passed by Dunbar's number a long time ago. So
when I see you speaking about vectors, attacks, you're a hacker, bro. The day we start this, you're gonna be making money. I mean, maybe the only thing keeping you is really like the what keeps us all, that fear of starting.
yeah, this is something that's a hard problem to solve, because I've actually looked more at hacker success at Immunefi, and I realized it's not that there's a lack of technical skill. I've seen, I was actually just talking over email over a guy who's saying he's like he's a bridge designer, like civil engineer, industrial type, and he's an elite white hat hacker on Immunefi. And I was like, that's wild. How did you make that jump? And I was like, when I was finishing university, I had some time and interest, and I ended up learning some of this Web3 stuff. And, I'd just be interested in doing this on weekends sometimes. And I get, stories like this from these weird niche areas come up all the time. And for getting started, it's one of these weird problems. Crypto is terrible at getting people started, Web3 in general. Very hard learning curve. But yeah, frankly, it's an unsolved problem. I'm looking more about how to take your guys' skill sets and plug you straight into like, the Immunefi system or bug hunting system in general, contest audits. Because for the most case, you don't actually need too much more technical skill, or getting trained technically for a contest audit or bug hunting or any of this work isn't what you need. You just need to get shown how to apply your skill in an effective way. And you find like what you can do, right? Making bridges to breaking bridges. Perfect transition indeed.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's just having a sense about how you can get started. This is, frankly, I think contest audits are great for this, just because they're very welcoming. But
I have a question here.
I'm posting.
Go on. You're hosting?
No, I was just saying I'm trying to do some experiments about how to make this easier. So I'm doing summaries of different bug bounty programs and projects. But like I haven't solved this yet. The on ramp to security researcher work is hard.
I understand.
Helping build up confidence and get the attacker mindset, that very elusive, mysterious thing of not thinking like a developer, but thinking like a black hat, trying to figure out how to break things. Not easy. I do not have firm answers to that yet.
Yeah, that's crazy. And we just got a great input on that from Saxonism the other day. He was talking that you can also think as a competitor that is willing to take a hit to cause a greater damage on someone. So there's different mindsets when approaching a smart contract, which is wild. I have a question here from Scroll saying that would you argue that Web3 security maybe got blown out of proportion in terms of its rewards and objectives? Kind of how traditional cybersecurity gets advertised, and then that there aren't many jobs for entry level but advanced only, leaving a massive surplus of entry level roles, individuals. Sorry, man, that was too
Right.
much
No,
text.
so there's a couple questions actually baked into there. And to lay some of them out, it's, is there no entry level work in Web3 security? Another of them is like, are rewards disproportionately higher than they should be right now? Is engagement from like, newbies and rookies coming into the Web3 security space greater than the actual demand? Too much supply. And for the first one, it's like there is no entry level work. Yeah, but I mean that's pretty much true. Like you can look at Spearbit DAO and see their payment ranges, and the lead security researchers I think get like 20K a week, while like the lowest level I think junior security researchers they're called. I'm not quite sure, but they get like I think like 2K, and yeah, it's like yeah, one of these leads is worth 10 more than 10 times as much as as 10
Wow.
of lower level guys. Um, and that's true. And Spirit DAO is doing great work to put that together so they can actually pass on that information, do that knowledge transfer in a working environment. Um, so yeah, entry level is hard. I love contest audit for this. I'd love to see more people that look at like Immunify bounties, and even if they get a closed report or a low or just a medium, or just like a goodwill payment from the project's appreciation, most of the time you're allowed to publish that. If not, send me a message and I'll tell you whether you are. Usually you are, uh, and just share that information. As well, if you research a project and you find no bugs in it whatsoever, awesome. You learned a ton. It would be great for everybody in your own understanding to post like a write up of some interesting things you learned. Um, and that is the closest thing there's an entry level to a lot of Web3 security right now. It is essentially unpaid. Um, as for the other two questions are like are bounties and payments too high? Are security researchers getting paid too much? You just look at like the hacks going on, and I think that question answers itself. Um, this isn't like Web 2 where someone steals like a cajillion credit cards and email and passwords and account names and things like that. And they're like, oh no, but whatever. The only problem is the regulators might come after us and we'll just pay those fines. While in Web 3, it's like, oh no, everyone in your community just lost, 10K, or your project just lost its entire treasury. Yeah, you cannot afford to have these risks. It's like living without a lock on your front door. Well, it's actually safe where I live. It's like living without having a front door, and any raccoon can just come in and scavenge around your cupboard and your fridge. So the bounties, no, definitely not too high. Are there too many rookies coming in? Uh, Frankly, I think if every rookie today was like as good as one of these lead security researchers, Web3 would be a better place. Um, they'd probably, they wouldn't be getting 20K a week. Maybe they'd only be getting 10K a week in that case. But demand for security work is way greater than supply right now. If we could have 100 proofs looking at all the projects on Immunify, the amount of bugs he would be finding is it's just huge. Ditto for guys like big names like Trust as well. If there were more of them, there is no shortage of work for them to be doing. And if they did that, then maybe crypto Web3 wouldn't have such a bad reputation in the face of the general business world, which still looks at it and is like, ooh, seems fake, seems like printing money, seems like, oh, look, they're getting hacked. Why would you do that? And part of that reputation is well earned just because there are these, million or tens of millions or $100 million hacks happening every day or every week or every month. So yeah, in 3 years from now, literally everyone has an opportunity to succeed who can build up the skill set. The hard part is going to be, sticking with the game because entry level is brutal. It's not very welcoming. You're doing free work.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy, bro. Amazing input, by the way. I have another question from Max, but this one can be a little bit sensitive. You don't have to answer if you can't. What is the payment model? What is the payment model behind Immunify? How does people that run Immunify get paid?
Oh, Immunify is very simple on that. Pretty much, if a bounty is paid 100K, 10% on top of that is paid to Immunify as the fee. And so, if a project pays, once again, for an easy example, 100K bounty, they pay the hacker 100K. They do that directly. And then in addition to that, they give Immunify 10K. So, it's entirely on a, I guess, output basis or commission basis, you could put it.
So it's pay per vulnerability, right?
Pardon?
Is pay per vulnerability?
Oh, yes. More accurately, it's paid per impactful vulnerability
Nice.
because there was that one a bunch of crits last year where they got paid millions or 10 million or something ludicrous like that. Huge impact bugs. No amount of lows submitted on Immunefi will ever reach one of those bugs. Like those are what people really care about. Those are the things that kill your entire protocol and the last 5 years of work of your 100-person team. So
Yeah, I do
those
get
get
it. Crazy. Um, how do you deal with the anxiety of opening a fresh code base?
yeah. Um, generally you want to balance it with the excitement of opening a fresh code base. If if you don't care about the project and how it works, you're going to have a lot harder time sticking with it. Uh, if you are comfortable, talking to people or you know who to talk to when you struggle, when you're like, I don't get how this works, I don't get why they did this. Uh, if you're adept at, going through documentation, or when the documentation isn't good enough, you're adept at reaching out to the right person. That it's that simple. You want to, while there's a bunch of different strategies of like read the documentation first or read the code first or think about it at a high level or a low level or read the comments. These are all personal preference. The bigger thing is that you're actually interested in understanding the code, and you can then take every frustration and every difficulty as an exciting question to learn. How does this work? Why does this work this way? Do other projects do this the same or differently? And when you have enough of those good questions, you could do your own little article or podcast on it, and people would be like, yeah, those are good questions. I would have had the same if I was looking at that project. you know Maybe you do a good enough job, the project gives you some grants to do some educational content on it. This is that's my general attitude.
Awesome. Next question is, can someone directly get into Web3 bug bounties, or is it important to do some audit contests first?
Oh yeah, you could definitely jump straight into like bug bounties. Fundamentally, it's the same work. The contest audits, they just have their write-ups posted like a month later with every accepted bug written, and you can be like, oh, why did I miss that one? So it's more of like a school, better feedback system. But if you have the skill, I'm thinking of what was Root Rescue guy. I think it was, forget the project. Anyways, he got paid like 400K. Project did a public post about this, and it was it was his first bug, first time in Web3. We had a conversation too. Really interesting story. He was like, "Oh, should I transition to Web3?" Um, as everybody asks, and it's this is a question I have with everybody. Everyone, once you get one bug bounty, everyone thinks, should I keep doing this? And it's a good question to think about. It's always going to depend on your personal circumstance. But yeah, you don't need any experience doing an auditing firm or contest audits. At the end of the day, you find a bug, you submit a bug.
Awesome. Next question is, does Immunify plans to have any educational platform like Alchemy?
Uh, so I've used education would be awesome. Yes. The problem with education is it's better, in my view, general technical education is better done in the broader crypto space. So like Web3 security in general, rather than Web3 specifically for bug bounties. So, I've looked at focusing on doing education before from a technical perspective, but the ROI, frankly, I think is not there. That the people who really want to learn, there are resources to learn from. As for how bug bounties work specifically, I am working on like educational resources for that because it is way more intimidating and mysterious than it should be. Every day someone's sending me a message for a very stressful question for which I have a very simple answer, and I'm like, I just need to make an article on this and make this easy to find and push this out there so other people don't have the same confusion.
This is really nice. You've been doing great work with that, man. Always so available to the community. How do you handle all these people, all these requests? Because it must be all day long people talking to you, right?
I actually opened up my messages today to plan what I'd be doing today. And I was like, how much time will it take me to do all my messages, all my direct messages? Some are simple, some are more complicated, and 2 hours. I'm like, yeah, this is about 2 hours messaging. If I'm going to actually give thoughtful responses, it's not just, I gave a skim of it to see, is it stuff I've thought about before? No, there's some new stuff. There's always some new stuff. And so, yeah, it's just a lot of time.
Awesome.
Thoughtfulness. And, on that note, always feel free to reach out to me. I saw the guy in the Immunefi channel on the OpenSense Discord here being like, oh, I don't want to DM him. No, send me a DM. I'm totally happy to have it.
Amazing, bro. I have a question here regarding the POC. So if someone doesn't code out the POC, but POC it with something like tenderly, just for the sake of submitting the report quickly, there's any chances that the report gets rejected, confirmed?
So for submitting a POC, part of the reason it's very important is to actually understand if your bug is real. And a lot of the time you can't figure that out until you've gone deeply into it. It is a sensitive thing because I generally don't want to say, submit low quality bug reports or submit low quality POCs. It just causes problems. It just ends up taking more of your time and more of the project's time, and it's clear when someone has been thoughtful into their bug report or not. So there is a case to be made. Like, you want to clearly represent your bug and the impact. If the way you're submitting it with like the quality of POC that does clearly represent it, I generally say be more clear than you think you need to, because almost even from like the most top white hats, most experience in the game, super, gigabrain guys, they will every single bug report, they're like, oh, I thought it was clear. It wasn't as clear as I thought it was. And sometimes they're missing information entirely and they just didn't realize it till they got feedback from the project. So, as far as you skimp on your bug report, you're just risking the project misunderstanding you, the bug report being wrong, and just closing it out. And yeah, I don't have any hard answer on that question.
No problem, no problem. I have another question here is, what is the minimum, let's say, vulnerability to be considered an actual low on Immunefi? Something like chaining, stale prices. Do you have an example for that?
So that's actually an easy clarified thing where every project will have their list of impacts that they consider in scope. And then on our Zendesk, we have an article which is just our severity classification system, where it just says, like, if this is what the impact is, this is how we define it. And you could just jump to the low section and see, okay, how are each low impact bug defined? So pretty clear. If you want to see that, you just got to Google, what would it be like? Immunefi severity classification system. It'll probably be the first one that pops up. Or, just send me a DM. Always welcome.
Awesome. Can we talk a little bit about report writing? Because I know that's super important, right? And one of the things people miss and can even lead to greater payouts, right?
Right. Yeah. So report writing, we've got a bunch of templates for that. We've got, in addition to the POC templates, you can look at like the bug report write-ups where we've done like bug fix reviews to kind of get a sense for how to well explain a bug. It's useful to read these just so you can understand technical writing. Technical writing is hard. And every single time, even like, you do a really good bug report, there might be something the project knows that you just couldn't have known, or wouldn't be worth you researching, and you're going to find out it's invalid. Or you're going to find out it is a real bug, but it looks like it's not to them. And so you need to do another deep dive into it. So for these, look at the bug report templates, read bug report reviews. Generally, you want to make everything as objective as possible. And this carries on to when the bug report happens itself and the project says, oh no, this is out of scope, or this is invalid, or this isn't real, or this wouldn't work because of whatever reason. And you want to be able to be really cool-headed and rational and be like, no, if you look at this data here and this facts here, you can see why it is. And just have it very clear cut. They say, oh, this would never happen. And you say, oh no, this happened. This attack was possible last month on this day. It was possible on this, 2 months before that, on the day before. And you can just prove pretty much every statement from an objective point of view. And looking for like, how would I prove this if I had to prove this is a brutal thought experiment. But it leads to just like more convincing arguments, better communication, all that stuff.
Awesome. I invited more people to speak. If you guys want to make a question or say thank you to our dear friend Mackenzie, please feel free to open your mics.
I will be the first, man. First of all, I like how Immunefi is built on the collaboration of researchers and the staff, because when you know that you bring something that others can benefit from, like I'm getting paid and the staff is getting paid, this way the staff is going to take care of me. Like they're going to combat the project on behalf of me. This is the first thing. The second thing, man, I like how friendly you are. Like your tone, the way you talk, like you sound like a great guy for real.
Yeah, thank you, man. I wish I was going to the Paris security conference that's happening right now, sometime around now, because it'd be so great to just get to have some dinners together, throw some parties together. Yeah, for friendliness is what I bring. I don't have the technical expertise, but try and lean into my strengths.
Amazing, bro. Max, Dark Art, Ismael.
Yeah, I just want to say I've appreciated the policy updates. I think a lot of times bug bounties, you have this, oh, this technically wasn't in scope, but I could have stolen $50 million, and because it's not in scope, you're not paying me. But you guys have kind of started to try to fix that problem, and I've really appreciated the platform. I haven't found anything yet, but it seems like things are going in the right direction, or better than traditional Web 2 bounties. So thank you for that.
Yeah, now policy change, frankly, there's a lot more content and community activities and events I'd love to be doing. But, looking at like good policies that prevent disputes from coming up in the first place, make things more objective for your bug reports that you submit. This is my goal. Ideally, like Immunefi mediation is never needed to be called in because everything is like so crystal clear. That is my objective.
Awesome. Do we have more people?
I only wanted to thank you to Immunefi because the project it's awesome because it's providing the opportunity to a lot of people to dig into Web3 security. Because when I started on blockchain 2 years ago, I just saw audits and bug bounty from audit firms, and since Immunefi it's here around. I've seen a lot more people involved in audits, and I think that the audit quality has evolved a lot too. So thank you.
Nice to hear. Yeah, no, it's good to hear the appreciation. I'm sure, Misanthropic working at OpenSense always appreciates it as well. As whenever you submit a good bug report, getting a thank you from a project. This is not always something common. I know like in Web 2 security, it's a very, from what I've heard, unfriendly place, very competitive in a bad sense, rather than like a healthy rivalry between hackers, but also between hackers and projects. And so I appreciate you sharing that.
Awesome. Anyone else? Saber, Dark Heart.
Yeah. Hey, man.
Do you have any questions
Can
for
you
our
hear me?
friend? Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I do have a question actually.
Go on.
Yeah, you've mentioned earlier that so many researchers have found like some bugs like over and over again in multiple projects. Like it's the same bug, but it's the same bug for many projects. I was just wondering if this bug is related directly to the smart contracts, or is it like related to the front end, or I don't exactly understand like the kind of the bug exactly, and whether there is like write-ups for this kind of bugs like publicly available on Immunefi blog or something. Thank you.
The short answer is yes. As in, it's on front end things. It's also on smart contracts. I know there was one. I don't know how much too much I should say, but there was one type of bug found on like a blockchain level that was submitted to many projects. Many projects shared this, and this is common when you find a unique bug. Projects are forks of forks of forks. They're going to be shared upstream, and the more unique the bug is, the more common it'll be. The bigger factor here is actually understanding the bug on a deep enough level that you can jump from one project to another, and the bug will be the same, but it'll always be a little bit different. The code will be a little bit different, the implementation will be a little bit different, the attack vector will be, an impact will be a bit different, and you need to understand it well enough to actually, translate that into their situation. Yeah, so the short answer is yes.
Awesome.
It is on every level.
Guys, anything else? Money Group? Max? Okay, bro. I think this is it. Would you have any closing thoughts? Any last words?
Yeah, the big thing, as I'm working on better education about how Immunefi works, how to succeed on Immunefi, in the bug report discussion with the project if there's a dispute, but also in writing your bug report or in looking at projects how to do it. If you got questions, always feel just like send me a DM. There's policy changes in the works, and ones that have happened before have been because you would say like, hey, I have this problem. I don't like how this worked out. Maybe it's technically part of the rules, maybe it's a gray area, and maybe we have a solution today, or maybe we don't and we need to make one, or maybe we need to just make it public and more clear. And so that feedback is always helpful. Like people ask me questions and they think, I'm taking up your time, I'm bothering you. But really for me, it's like very valuable research. It's, it's like if I got to get preached by Socrates and him tell me everything I need to be doing different by asking questions, I'd be like, oh, thank you. Thank you. So, my DMs are always open. Whatever topic, whatever thoughts on your mind. And yeah, I mean, for bug reports, if you're ever unsure, I know there's a lot of uncertainty. You're like, do I call in a mediation? Can a project do what they just did? I'm freaking out. Send me a message. Solving freakouts before they happen is also one of my goals. Avoiding all that unnecessary stress. So, I think good place to end it on.
Bro, thank you so
Thank you,
much for your
Mackenzie.
time. You're an amazing person. I mean, everybody here loves you. Keep on doing the good work you're always doing, and taking care of the hackers. We really need more people like you in this space. And OpenSense is always open to you, and whatever you need, we're here. Okay? Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, guys. And for you in my time zone, have a good morning. Probably for the rest of you, have a good night.
Bye bye.
Ciao. Have a good one.